In the glamorous yet unforgiving world of Chinese entertainment, few stories have captured the public's imagination like Tong Liya's. From her rise as a national goddess to the heartbreak of a troubled marriage, and finally to the triumph of independence, her journey reads like the plot of a drama, except it was all too real. Audiences watched her endure betrayal, stand tall in silence, and ultimately reclaim her life with courage. What makes her story unforgettable is not just her beauty or talent, but her resilience. Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind her rise, fall, and rebirth on Criminal Tracks. Tong Liya's story begins in the far reaches of Xinjiang, a region known for its rugged beauty and cultural diversity. Born in 1984, she carried the unique heritage of the Xibei ethnic group, which set her apart even before fame found her. Growing up in a modest family, her early life was far from the glittering lights of China's entertainment industry. But those who knew her as a child often spoke of her charm, grace, and a quiet determination that suggested she was destined for more than an ordinary life. The journey to stardom, however, would not be handed to her. It was forged through years of discipline, sacrifice, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. From a young age, Tong Liya gravitated toward the performing arts, immersing herself in dance and performance. This path eventually led her to the prestigious Central Academy of Drama in Beijing, a place where many of China's most celebrated actors and actresses had trained. For a girl from Xinjiang, being accepted into such an institution was both an achievement and a challenge. She was suddenly among the best of the best, competing for recognition in an industry that often valued connections as much as raw talent. But Tong Liya was not someone to be underestimated. Her natural beauty caught immediate attention, her delicate features and expressive eyes making her stand out even in a crowd of hopefuls. Teachers and peers noted not only her striking appearance, but also her ability to embody characters with sincerity. Early on, it became clear that she possessed both the looks and the talent to carve out a career in China's booming entertainment world. By the time she graduated, opportunities had already started to line up. Her breakthrough came with historical dramas, where she portrayed women of elegance and dignity. Chinese audiences, with their deep appreciation for costume dramas, found her presence captivating. In a genre filled with elaborate sets and elaborate costumes, her ability to convey emotion with a simple glance or subtle expression gave her performances a memorable quality. Viewers began referring to her as a goddess-like figure, someone who seemed to embody both the classical beauty of China's past and the modern star power of its present. At a time when the entertainment industry was saturated with polished but forgettable faces, Tong Liya's blend of authenticity and grace made her unforgettable. Critics praised her ability to bring warmth and relatability to roles that might otherwise have felt distant. Each appearance built on the last, and before long, she had become one of the most sought-after actresses in the country. As her fame grew, so did her influence beyond the screen. Fashion brands sought her out, eager to associate their products with her image. She became a style icon, appearing on magazine covers and walking red carpets with a poise that made photographers and fans alike take notice. In a culture where celebrity endorsements carry immense weight, her presence boosted brands overnight. But fame is rarely without complication, and for Tong Liya, it meant constant scrutiny. Every role, every appearance, every gesture was analyzed not only by entertainment reporters, but by millions of online commenters. While many admired her, others began to question whether she was too reliant on her beauty, hinting at the immense pressure actresses face to prove themselves beyond surface-level charm. Her personal life, however, seemed to provide a perfect counterbalance to the pressures of fame. In 2014, she married Chen Sicheng, an actor and director who was himself well established in the industry. Their marriage was portrayed in the media as a fairy tale union between two powerful figures in Chinese entertainment. Public appearances together painted the picture of a glamorous couple. admired by fans who long to see their idols find happiness both on and off the screen. Wedding photos and interviews fed into the narrative of a perfect love story, one that seemed almost scripted for a romantic drama. For a while, the image of Tong Liya and Chen Xicheng as an inseparable duo became one of the most admired relationships in the industry. Yet beneath the surface of this picture-perfect facade, the realities of fame and personal life began to intersect in ways that would later become defining chapters in her story. But at this early stage, what the public saw was a woman who had risen from humble beginnings to become a national icon. She was celebrated not only for her performances, but for embodying ideals of elegance, perseverance, and devotion. Fans across the country looked up to her, and many young women viewed her as proof that determination and grace could open doors once thought closed. What made Tong Liya's early rise so compelling was not just the speed at which it happened, but the way it seemed almost effortless, as though she had been born for the spotlight. Behind that perception, though, was a woman who had endured the hardships of moving from a distant province to the heart of China's entertainment hub, who had trained tirelessly, and who had faced the constant comparisons to other stars trying to capture the same dream. Every audition, every photo shoot, every performance demanded perfection, and Tong Liya delivered it with a smile. This phase of her career painted her as untouchable, a star without scandal, someone whose image was polished to shine brighter than most. But what fans didn't know then was that her personal life would eventually take center stage, pulling her into the very kind of media frenzy she had once seemed immune to. At this point in her life, Tong Liya had it all: a thriving career, the love of a powerful man, and the adoration of millions. She was a symbol of success in modern China, an actress whose face could launch television dramas to the top of the ratings, and whose presence on stage could transform a fashion show into a national talking point. Yet, as history has shown with countless celebrities before her, perfection rarely lasts. What appeared to be a flawless ascent would soon be tested by forces that had little to do with acting talent or fashion sense. The cracks in the fairy tale would start to show, and Tong Liya's ability to navigate those cracks would define not just her career, but her legacy. By the time Tong Liya's marriage to Chen Xicheng entered its third year, whispers began to surface that not everything was as perfect as it seemed. In an industry that thrives on rumor and speculation, celebrity couples often find themselves at the mercy of paparazzi cameras and late-night leaks. For Tong Liya, the first cracks appeared when Chinese tabloids began reporting on Chen Xicheng's alleged late-night outings with women who were not his wife. Photographs of him in compromising situations started making their rounds online, and while nothing was ever officially confirmed, the images painted a picture that was difficult to ignore. Fans who once adored the couple now pitied Tong Liya, casting her as the dignified, wronged wife. What made the situation all the more complex was her decision not to comment publicly. Her silence became a form of strength, a way to hold her head high while the world debated her private life. That silence won her a wave of sympathy from the public. Social media filled with supportive messages, many urging her to leave Chen Xicheng, while others praised her for maintaining composure under the glaring spotlight. In a society where women in the public eye are often expected to endure in silence, her ability to project grace despite the rumors only elevated her reputation. Tong Liya became more than just a celebrated actress. She became a symbol of quiet resilience. The narrative of the wronged wife resonated deeply with audiences, and many began to see her not just as a star, but as a woman enduring struggles familiar to countless others. Professionally, however, the scandal began to affect her. Casting directors and critics scrutinized her roles more closely. While she continued to be praised for her beauty, some accused her of leaning too heavily on her looks rather than choosing more challenging or transformative characters. It was a criticism that followed many actresses of her generation, but for Tong Liya, it felt particularly pointed during a time when her private life was already under the microscope. There were whispers that she risked being typecast, that her career might plateau if she didn't take bolder steps in her acting choices. Still, she pressed on, determined not to let personal challenges define her professional path. It was during this period that her image began to shift in subtle but important ways. Known initially as a delicate beauty, she started to embrace opportunities that showed a different side of her personality. On variety shows, she revealed humor and wit, engaging with audiences in ways that were refreshingly candid. Her appearances allowed fans to see the woman behind the glamorous roles, someone capable of laughing at herself, making quick jokes, and navigating awkward moments with charm. This move was calculated yet genuine, and it proved to be a turning point. Tong Liya was no longer just the fragile goddess from costume dramas. She was a relatable, down-to-earth woman who could win hearts with more than just her looks. Meanwhile, rumors of divorce swirled almost constantly. Every few months, gossip sites published insider claims that the couple had separated or that divorce papers were being prepared. Each time, those rumors were met with either silence or vague denials, which only fueled further speculation. The uncertainty kept her in the headlines, sometimes overshadowing her work, but it also kept audiences invested in her story. People wanted to know what Tong Liya would do, whether she would stay in a marriage clouded by scandal or whether she would break free. Through all of this, her career refused to collapse. Instead, she began rebuilding her image with precision. Choosing projects more carefully, she leaned into roles that emphasized strength and independence, reflecting the personal transformation audiences suspected she was undergoing. The shift did not go unnoticed. Media outlets began to frame her narrative as one of reinvention, of a woman refusing to be defined by her husband's actions. Each new role seemed to echo her personal journey, making audiences feel that her performances carried a piece of her real life. Her handling of the situation also stood out in contrast to how other celebrities might have approached similar scandals. Instead of public meltdowns, fiery statements, or emotional interviews, Tong Liya maintained composure. She never publicly humiliated her husband, nor did she exploit the scandal for sympathy points. In doing so, she won even more respect, not just from fans, but also from industry peers who admired her professionalism. There was an understanding that she was enduring great personal difficulty. Yet, she continued to show up on set, smile for cameras, and deliver performances that met high expectations. It's worth noting that during this period, the role of Chinese social media in shaping celebrity narratives was more powerful than ever. Tong Liya's situation became a mirror for countless discussions about marriage, loyalty, and the challenges faced by women in public and private life. Hashtags related to her marital troubles trended repeatedly, with fans dissecting every clue from her social media posts. A smile in a photo could be interpreted as strength, a missing wedding ring as a sign of looming separation. While invasive, this constant attention only deepened the public's emotional connection to her. Slowly, the perception of Tong Liya shifted from victim to survivor. No longer was she simply the wife who endured her husband's rumored infidelity. She was the woman who chose dignity over drama, humor over bitterness, and professionalism over scandal. Each choice added a new layer to her public identity, making her one of the most respected figures in the entertainment world. Critics who once dismissed her as overly reliant on beauty began acknowledging her depth, while fans who sympathized with her struggles cheered her evolution into a stronger, more independent figure. By the late 2000s and 10s, the divorce rumors became less shocking and more expected, almost like an inevitable conclusion to a long-running story. Yet, Tong Liya remained steadfastly quiet on the matter, allowing the speculation to swirl unchecked. This approach only heightened anticipation for the day when the truth would finally be revealed. Audiences were no longer just following her career, they were following her life, invested in each decision she made and each public step she took. And while the marriage continued to dominate the headlines, Tong Liya was carefully laying the groundwork for her next chapter, one that would ultimately redefine her legacy. By the spring of 2021, years of speculation finally gave way to certainty. On May 20th, a date chosen for its symbolic resonance in China, as it phonetically echoes the phrase, "I love you," Tong Liya and Chen Xicheng announced their divorce. The choice of day was ironic, almost poetic. What should have been an expression of love became a declaration of closure. The public had been waiting for this moment, and the reaction was nothing short of explosive. Social media erupted, not with sorrow, but with celebration. For once, the sympathy long reserved for her suffering transformed into jubilation at her liberation. Tong Liya was free, and the internet crowned her independence as a victory. The announcement ended years of speculation, but marked the beginning of a new phase in her life. Instead of dwelling on the painful past, she leaned into the narrative of empowerment. No longer tied to the role of a patient wife enduring humiliation, she redefined herself as a woman in control of her own destiny. Headlines shifted almost overnight. She was no longer Chen Xicheng's wife, but Tong Liya, the independent actress, the national goddess who had finally chosen herself. This rebranding wasn't orchestrated by clever marketing. Rather, it was born from her own choices, her quiet resilience, and the public's hunger for a heroine who could turn hardship into strength. In the months following the divorce, Tong Liya began taking on projects that reflected this new chapter. Roles with more substance, characters who exhibited resilience, independence, and depth. The transformation was palpable. Audiences who had once pitied her now admired her, and her performances carried a new weight. There was a maturity in her acting that had not been as visible before, as if personal struggle had carved a sharper edge into her craft. She was no longer just embodying fictional women on screen. She was in many ways performing her own story of rebirth. Outside of acting, Tong Liya also embraced her identity with pride, reconnecting publicly with her Xibe heritage. She became more vocal in promoting cultural awareness, attending events, and speaking about traditions that reflected not only her background, but also her belief in resilience. For many, this cultural pride was a natural extension of her personal journey. She had weathered betrayal, endured relentless speculation, and chosen a path that required courage. Reclaiming her roots gave her story an even stronger sense of authenticity, further endearing her to a public eager for genuine figures in an industry known for facades. Her public statements after the divorce were carefully chosen. Rather than dwelling on bitterness, she spoke about moving forward, about resilience and hope. Quotes from her interviews began to circulate widely, with many of her words framed as inspirational reminders for women who, like her, might have faced difficult marriages or societal judgment. She became not just an actress, but a symbol of empowerment. Fans began referring to her as a role model for independence, someone who could turn private pain into public strength. Meanwhile, Chen Xicheng's reputation suffered. While he continued his career in directing, his image never fully escaped the shadow of the scandals that had plagued their marriage. In contrast, Tong Liya thrived in the post-divorce landscape, her newfound freedom amplifying her career rather than hindering it. The contrast between the two became part of her narrative. The unfaithful husband diminished in reputation, while the wronged wife emerged stronger than ever. Tong Liya also ventured into philanthropy, supporting causes that resonated with her personal values. These included initiatives that celebrated women's empowerment, education, and cultural preservation. By tying her celebrity influence to social good, she further distinguished herself from other stars who seemed consumed only by fame and fortune. In a time when public trust in celebrities was fragile, her actions gave weight to her words. She wasn't just speaking about resilience, she was living it and using her platform to inspire others. Even in the face of ongoing gossip, she managed to maintain control of her story. Rumors about her dating life surfaced, as they inevitably would for a star of her caliber, but none overshadowed the core narrative of her independence. Instead of letting speculation define her, she let her work and her actions speak louder. Each new role and each public appearance reinforced the image of a woman who had turned adversity into triumph. Today, Tong Liya stands as one of China's most respected actresses. Her journey from a modest upbringing in Xinjiang to the bright lights of Beijing, through scandal and heartbreak, to her present status as an empowered figure, makes her story one of resilience and transformation. She is admired not only for her beauty, but for her ability to rise above circumstances that might have destroyed others. Her legacy is still being written, but it is already clear that she has become more than an actress. She is a cultural icon, a modern figure of strength in an industry and society that often expects silence from women in her position. Tong Liya's story is more than a tale of fame and scandal. It is a testament to strength, grace, and the courage to begin again. Her journey reminds us that even in the face of betrayal and relentless scrutiny, dignity can be the sharpest weapon and independence the sweetest victory. As she continues to build her legacy, she stands as both an artist and an inspiration, proving that storms can forge unbreakable strength. For more stories that reveal the hidden struggles and powerful comebacks of Asia's most iconic stars, make sure to subscribe and never miss the next Criminal Tracks Deep Dive.